Remember, it's the 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Come on, you guys. All right. Come on over here. You know, customarily, you know, you guys can ask me a question, but I want to ask you questions now. No. Do you guys have any burning questions about Mesa Verde or ancestral Pueblans or anything of that order before we do our health and safety talk?
What was the population down there estimated?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
Sorry.
We don't know. Yeah. Next question, please. No.
Where's the coffee shop?
Yeah. 50 years ago, I mean, this is kind of interesting. 50 years ago at Cliff Palace, they would have said 400 people lived here. About 25 years ago, they said 260 people lived here. And now we're seeing about 80 to 120. Okay? And now, why? You know, some of the differences. Well, 50 years ago, we didn't have a drought here today, you know. So, you know, when you're measuring on how much a crop can support 50 years ago, kind of would be a lot more than like today. So, and also other theories kind of pop up as well. So, so fundamentally, we really don't know what the actual number is, because a lot of times they'll say 21 kivas and 8 people per kiva. Well, where'd they get the 8? You know, sort of thing. So, but those are guesstimates, sort of thing.
When was this discovered?
In Anglo-America, that would have been in 1888 by the Wetherills, a Mancus ranching Quaker family that came here. It was in December, and they were looking for cattle, as the story goes, and they're over there, kind of like where Sun Temple is, and they looked across, a cloud lifted, and they saw Cliff Palace, and they went, whoa, sort of thing, okay? Now, they also had a guide at that time, Asitia, or Alkowitz was the guy's name, out of the Ute Mountain tribe. And, you know, Mancus Valley is, you go down about 5 miles from here is the Mancus River, which is just a little creek, and then you go up about 15 miles is the Mancus Valley. Cattle don't roam that far. So, I think, this is just me, Alkowitz said, "You want to see something cool?" So
what was the tribe here? Was it the Anasazi?
Oh, another good question.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're just going to have to crawl the entire way. Years ago, when a guy by the name of Gustav Nordenskjöld was here, he went to the Wetherills. They were kind of like outfitters at that point, and Nordenskjöld was doing some initial scientific exploration of the Anasazi, you know, and he must have asked a Navajo person at that time, because Anasazi means ancient ones in Dene, okay, Navajo, and it was printed in the book called The Cliff Dwellers, and it kind of like was wet oatmeal and it stuck to the wall, if you will, forever and a day, sort of thing. And we have 21 descendant nations, and over those 21 descendant nations, there's 6 languages. And in those 6 languages, Anasazis means either foreigner or enemy. And it just took an ever so long period of time for us to kind of get out of our heads to, hey, maybe we shouldn't say that, you know? You know, that's kind of like offensive a little bit, you know, so now we say ancestral Pueblan because over those 6 languages, they didn't have a common name for ancestor. So that's on how Anasazi has shifted to ancestral Pueblan, and, you know, it's to be respectful.
So they change their vocabulary with time, not like unlike today.
Correct. Not as if we kind of goof up
Politically
every
correct.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little bit more politically correct, etc. Yeah.
So where did they farm?
They farmed up on top of these cuestas. Okay. Oh, I just threw a name at you here. You know, we call this Mesa Verde. What does Mesa mean? Table. Is it flat up here?
No.
No. Okay.
But it looks
And what
flat.
does Verde? Yeah.
From below.
Yeah. It looks flat when I close my eyes. And Verde means green. So most of the time it's brown here,
Yes, it is.
and it's actually a cuesta. So if you look across the cuesta from right to left, doesn't it slope down?
Yes.
Yeah,
It does.
just every so yeah, and that was very, very important for their farming. If it did not do that, they could not have farmed. Okay, this is one of the principles of dryland farming. So Mesa Verde was named after Escalante and Dominguez in 1776 when they were trying to find a route from Santa Fe to San Francisco. They were up in Dolores looking across the Montezuma Valley, and they saw this little island sticking up from the valley floor. They said, that's green and that's flat. Well, they were wrong on both of them. So possibly they should have called it Cuesta Marrone, but that doesn't sound good, does it? I mean,
Sure, it
yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah. I like what the Hopi Nation calls this, Tatokia, this region, not just Mesa Verde. Tatokia, place of the songs. Yeah, so when you hear, native songs, and you see native dances, from the 21 descendant nations, where did they start? Here. So that's kind of like, there's a cool kind of connection sort of thing on that. You guys are, giving some good questions and stuff like that.
Oh, I have a question. I hope
Okay,
I
all
hope
right.
it hasn't been asked already. What a kiva is.
Kiva, you'll find out. Kiva is a Hopi word, home into the earth, celebratory area, and also spiritual. And it's a room. Typically it's round, and it's into the earth, and it's very, very functional. You'll learn all sorts of things
Okay.
about it.
Thank you.
And that's where a lot of storytelling originates and stuff, is in Kiva. So it's a very integral part of the Puebloan culture. Kivas are still used today. Let me give you a question. What is in the basement of the New Mexico state capitol?
Kiva.
Kiva, yeah. So,
It was a leading.
yeah, it was a leading question, yeah. All right.
And since it's brown and not green, what in the world could they grow here to sustain?
Oh, another good question. About 2,000 years ago, they went from hunter-gatherers into farming. And they were farming of corn, and corn is a sacred crop, beans, and then also squash. And they would dig holes of about yay big, then yay down, then over, and put seed in it, up on top. So when it would rain, it would kind of funnel in there, or you could pour some water in there, but also it shades the new plant, from our Syrian sun. So that was the type of farming that was up on here. And because it slopes, they built all these little check dams about yay high that would go across like an arroyo. So it would kind of go down, go down, go down. So when it would rain, it would hit the little check dam, back flood up. That's dryland farming.
Yeah, kind of like reverse terrace.
Correct, yeah. So what I think is kind of ingenious is north of here, north of Cortez, first of all, the ancestral Puebloans were in this entire region, not just here. That up there, they would build check dams on top of the sandstone rock like this. And you think, well, why on earth do that? Well, when it would rain, it would soak into the porous rock, then come out like a year later in a seep spring.
Good
And
water.
I often thought, you
Good
know, if I
water.
was ever on a desert island all by
Yeah.
myself and I needed to store water, would I figure that out? No, I would write my will. On that note, so you guys are all on the 9:30? Let me do a nose count.
I was actually in the 9, but I missed it. So.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Good, 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 good. All right, guys, want to get started with the health and safety talk?
Yeah.
Okay, to maximize your time down there. All right, got to talk to you about 4 separate things, guys. Some do's and don'ts, health and safety, being respectful, and then what you're about to do, okay? So give me a resounding yes or no. Can you have Doritos down there?
No.
Coca-Cola?
No.
Chewing gum?
No.
Water?
Yes.
Okay, good. You were on top of it, guys. Should you be sipping water?
Yes.
And you should be sipping water every, somebody say 10 to
10
15.
minutes.
You're on it. Every 10 to 15 minutes. So, which is our major concern here at Mesa Verde National Park, as well as in the Four Corners region, is dehydration. Dehydration leads to a lot of nasty things. The most common is fainting. So, just sip water every 10 to 15 minutes. It does miracles, okay? And keep in mind, there are no elevators down there. There are no roads down there. And so if you feel faint, nauseous, and all that stuff, and we have to do a carry out, you know, bad things happen, okay? And it's expensive. All right, so just listen to your body. It's early in the morning, nothing to worry about or anything of that order, but you know, throughout the day, just do that. And then also, if somebody in your party says, you know, I'm just not feeling too good right now, I got a headache kind of going on, or I'm feeling a little nauseous, you know, be respectful and say, okay, versus, you know, saying, oh, no, you can do it. Come on, you can, you know, they know what their body's telling them. So, you know, run with it, okay? Thumbs up?
Yep.
Okay. All right, being respectful. There are 2 aspects of it. I want you guys to be respectful between yourselves, and then I also want you to be respectful for the 21 descendant nations. So being respectful between yourselves, you're going to be in an alcove, and noise carries quite a bit. So if you're talking about what you're going to be doing tomorrow, or what you're going to have for lunch today, does that add to or subtract from somebody else's experience? What does it do?
Subtract from.
Right. So should
Don't
you do it?
Don't do it.
Right. So think about how your voice is carrying, okay? Being respectful for the 21 descendant nations. They believe that their ancestors were alive and are alive in these villages here, okay? And about a month or so ago, you know, some of the Zuni Nation guys, there was about 5 guys in their early 20s that came here. They had some cornmeal. They went to a water source, and you know, they had a ceremony there. They went into a kiva. They sang songs, you know, and prayed. And the reason why I'm telling you this is that, you know, you hear the Park Service or BLM or whoever, Forest Service, gives you all those don'ts. We don't want you to touch that wall. We don't want you to lean against that wall. We don't want you to sit on that wall. We don't want you to stand on that wall. We don't want you to look on that wall. Some of you got that joke. So you hear all these don'ts, right? The reason why I mention that little story is that it's in practice with them, okay, with the descendants. So it's not like way out there, all right? It's real. And if it's real to them, it should be real to us. Sound cool? Mm-hmm. All right. So what you're about to do, you have the QR code either on a piece of paper or on your phone. Okay, so pull that up. And so whoever has your QR code information, be the first person in your party, all right? When we get into a line and go down there. You'll be going down a couple of metal steps. I'll open up a gate, and there you'll be going down a series of sandstone steps. They're all different sizes and shapes going down, and all different distances down. So be extra careful. There's a little handrail. So after you get done with that, you'll go around a 270-degree turn, go up your first 10-foot ladder, and then you'll see a little sign that says wait for ranger, and there will be a ranger there that'll give you a short little talk about some pretty cool things about Cliff Palace. Then from there, you'll be walking in front of Cliff Palace itself, and then you'll go up some steps and go around a kiva, and there will be another little talk about kivas and other cool things, and then you'll head on out up some more steps, and then you'll hit 3 ladders, 10-foot ladder, landing, 10-foot ladder, landing, 10-foot ladder, and a few more steps, and you're out on the parking lot. So in summary, you start here, you finish there. Half mile, half hour, 120 feet down, therefore,
120 people.
and it's considered strenuous, okay? And also, you don't have to hang in this group, okay? That's not like a requirement. 99.999% of people do, you know, but if you decide not to, we ask you to go in the same direction and be very quiet, okay? You know, like just to take pictures or something. Does everybody have like a relatively good idea as into what we're about to do?
Yes.
Okay, good. And one last thing, you're at a national park. You should always learn about something. Here at Mesa Verde National Park, you should learn about people, you know, and there's some great takeaways that you can have and apply in your own life about what the ancestral Puebloans did very, very well. My opinion, they were excellent, excellent, excellent water managers. So if they can do it, maybe I can too. You know, so ready to have some fun and learn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Compliment.
Well, bedrock, you can't sit on the walls, but the rocks are. Yeah, I brought my kids here and asked them, so what do you remember?
Oh, shit.
Anybody been to any of the other touring sites? Cliff Island or Longhouse, we live on Weatherall Mesa. And then Balcony House is the other one just around the bend. That one's harder to get. You know, there's only 3 tours a day.
I know, I have to get off my straw.
But you got it? You got it? Oh, really? You guys the last ones? Okay. You never see from here. You need a big mirror, you know, like in traffic, so you see people coming up the ladder. Yeah. So we know they are living on top of the mesa about 750 years. And what are they growing? Corn, beans, and squash, but mostly corn. Agriculture allowed these people now to be sedentary and to develop a culture and to develop a community. And that's what you're looking at here. So this required a lot of people to make it work. And it was all because they now have a food source. So they're growing corn up here for 750 years, but then, you know, in the 1100s for a little while, and then especially in the 1200s, they moved down into this dwelling. Why would you do that? Yeah, environmental. That's the most obvious, right? So it's nice and cool in here, and we know you're protected from the snow. We get a lot of snow, 90 inches last year and the year before, and of course rainstorms, especially in this monsoon season. So yeah, you're protected from all of that, which makes sense to me. Why else though? That's the most obvious. And I can't interpret that, but that she's probably saying, how about water? And that's right, she's absolutely right. So we know this is the elevation by which these people gathered their water. So when you look up there, all that sandstone, we get 18 inches of precipitation a year. Well, it percolates down through the sandstone, hits a shale layer, and then it comes out as a seep spring. We think there's about 120 seep springs throughout the park, and these people, they knew where the seep springs were. And the animals now know. So
Do the seep springs run, they don't run 20,
yeah, yeah. Now sometimes a little bit more, but yeah, it takes decades for water to come down.
Yeah, yeah.
So gravity, it continues even in a dry season. So yeah, there'd be still some water, even in a drought. You'd still get some water from the seep springs. Now I'm from Pennsylvania. We have springs that pour out of the hillside. You put a jug there and it fills up quickly. That's not what happened here. So these people had these slow seeps, and even sometimes you'll see a channel. They'll dig into the sandstone to gather that water. Then they peck away and build these little cupules. So then they'll take a ladle and they'll dip into that cupule, fill up their olla, which is a clay pot, and they probably put it on their head and carry water into here. Because there's no seep spring in this dwelling, like balcony house and long house have seep springs. So yeah, these people were gathering water, carrying it in. So if you're living on top, that's what you were doing for centuries, carrying all your water up to the sunny, exposed part. So it kind of makes sense, yeah, if you're a younger generation, a new development down here, probably higher rent, but you'd still come down here for water, because you have to carry water up. Yeah.
Are the seep springs at the same elevation as dwellings?
Yeah, exactly. The seep springs not only provide water for these people, but it actually created the alcoves that you're seeing now. So yeah, this has water in it, and in the 1960s, and then in the 1995, they actually dug a trench around, and they're diverting water right under here. It comes out, and it's just a little trickle. But we don't think the ancestral people were able to use it. We're just gathering the water that's coming down, and then diverting it away because it causes
Preservation.
damage. Preservation, yep. That's the whole point, to protect and preserve for visitors for generations to come. Yes, sir.
So their construction, they just what held the blocks together? Did they use like a mud or?
Yeah.
Because I noticed over here it looks like more like grout.
Yeah, this is, you can tell the difference between the Park Service and we have Portland cement like all through here.
Yeah.
Because anytime, the ancestral people used what we call mortar, and they would gather clay, and they would take ash from their fire, and they would mix it with water, and that's what you see. And if you look back here, this is original mortar in the back. But anything that's exposed to the rain, and we call it the drip line, so if you're beyond the drip line, that's the first thing that erodes, because there's no hardening agent, there's no limestone. So it definitely, so if you lived here, I mean, you're fixing it all the time, like I am at my house. And there's always, walls are falling down, so a mason's working probably year round. But I would think, especially in the spring, because they need water. So after the snow melt, you have plenty of snow, so they would use that as mortar. So let's take a look at what you're staring at here. So we know there's 150 rooms here. And like I say, most of what you're looking at was built in like 1260 to 1280 AD, but they built on top of their ancestors. So there were people living here at different times throughout the centuries. But this is the last chapter. So if you lived here, you would probably take over an area like this up here. So if you lived here, let's pretend you live on top of this ladder. So climb the ladder, and you'll see this flat area, which is round. That's called a kiva, and you're going to be learning more about kivas. But if you look at each of these kivas, just imagine a roof on the top. And you really have to use your imagination here, because all of these jagged walls you see would be real walls. So build all those up, and it could be 4 or 5 stories. And if you're using your imagination, also picture a smooth surface, because they would plaster on the outside. Like look up here. So all of it would be smooth and plastered and colorful. So they could add reds, yellows, so it looks very different if you're living here in the 1250s. And if you're living here, you'd climb this ladder, and this is your home. Your home would include the flat surface on top of this round structure called a kiva, and probably 3 or 4 rooms in the back. And one of those rooms would be a kitchen. So look here, I see a lot of soot, so I would think this would be a good example of a kitchen. And the archaeologists have numbered 25 parts here, so probably 25 kitchens like this one here. And then if you're back here, another room would be for sleeping perhaps. And then maybe a couple rooms for storage, because this is before the Iron Age. So there's no metal tools, there's no shovels, there's no picks, there's no wheel. So you have no wheelbarrows, and you have no carts, and you have no donkeys or horses to pull the carts. Everything here is done by hand, even to the extent that they would take some of the dirt because if you look at any alcove, it's not flat, right? It's very beveled or angled, like this area. So they would have to carry dirt into this spot to make the floors of the kivas and dwelling spaces flat. Otherwise, they would be, angled down, right? So all of that by hand, which is amazing. And then all of the rocks, they would just take the rocks that are falling from the cliff and chisel away all day long with a rock tool, because they only have rocks, wood, and mud, right? So all the rock tools, and that's how they made all of these blocks. So hopefully you're starting to look at this spot here as being like a home. So each kiva then would have a plaza flat on the top, 3 or 4 rooms in the back, and we call that courtyard. So if you lived here, you would have your own courtyard with probably extended family, and we call that a clan. There's 21 of them here, so 21 different kivas. And then look at some of the other rooms. Like up here, there are 9 rooms here, and we call that the granaries. So this is where you store your corn, beans, and squash, because we're farmers here. So you have a bumper year, winter's coming, droughts are coming. So you can store enough up here for years. And this would be probably community storage. Now you might have some of your own storage, like in some of the smaller rooms down in here. But yeah, they would store all their food up there. And look at some of the architecture too. It's pretty amazing. They have to build around these rocks. So these are just the natural rocks falling from the roof of the cliff as it's being formed by Mother Nature over geologic time. And then, you build around them. And look at some of the structures up here even too. It's just different. We have a slab.
Yeah, over a doorway?
Yeah, it's a doorway right here. So pretty cool. And then this is how you would gain access to the 9 rooms at the top. So remember, using your imagination, you got maybe 4 stories. Are there any questions about that? Because I'm going to have you walk in front of the dwelling, and I need you to look at some of the mortar up close. And if you know what mortar is, you'll see chinking rock in there. It's so cool.
Got a question. The aesthetics. You said some of they plastered it for smooth appearance, and some were kind of rough. Why do they go to the effort of doing a smooth finish?
I don't know. I mean, it's like at my home, I have a big open room. That's the cool thing to have now. Why do we have that style of open room and the kitchen goes into the living room?
So that's labor.
We don't know the recipe, I don't. But I know the average was 35.
Kivas and Cliff Palace are still being told in the Pueblo living rooms today in New Mexico and Arizona and Texas. So kivas are a really important feature of a Pueblo home, and Pueblo communities that visit Mesa Verde, they know what a kiva is right away when they come here, right? They don't have to ask that question. What am I looking at? So yeah, that's why we talk about them so much at the park, because they're important to people, to the Pueblo culture. And people lived on Mesa Verde for about 700 years, and they lived in cliff dwellings like Cliff Palace for the last 100 of those years. But by probably the year 1300, nobody lived on Mesa Verde anymore. Everybody, maybe the 5,000 people that lived on the mesa, and the up to 50,000 people that may have lived in the greater Mesa Verde region, everybody migrated south to ultimately where those pueblos are located today. And the reason for why people left this area over the course of a couple generations is a little bit probably very complicated, because people are complicated, right? Have you guys ever moved before? What are some reasons why you've moved in the past? Relative.
Environment.
Jobs. The environment.
And sometimes a feeling that there might be more opportunity elsewhere.
Sure, yeah. Looking for more opportunity, looking for a better life, I think is often what a lot of it boils down to, right? Or you want to be close to family, or you want to get away from your family. Or maybe your family's expanding, so you need a bigger home, and then your kids go away to college, move out of the house, so you downsize, right? We move for lots of different reasons, for school, for work. The other day somebody said, because we wanted to get a dog, and the house we were in wouldn't let us have a dog, so they moved, right? We move for lots of different reasons, and sometimes those decisions are easy, and sometimes they're really difficult to make, right? You're weighing the pros and cons and trying to figure out what will be the best thing for you and your family. And I think that families in Mesa Verde were probably going through that process too. And not every family is moving for the exact same reasons. A lot of times when we think about why people move south, we focus on environmental factors, and they probably were important in some ways, but we focus on them a lot because they're easy to understand, and so they seem really obvious to us. You know, we can look at the tree ring data, and we know that a drought started in this region in 1274. People were living in Cleft Palace during that time and left sometime after that. So maybe, you know, it was the beginnings of that drought that was making life harder that the families that might have lived here decided to move. But we also know that a lot of people were leaving Mesa Verde way before that drought began. So how do you explain that? We can't just say it was because of drought. Well, there were colder temperatures probably, which might have led to crop failures. A lot of people were living in this region. The resources were probably overused. Maybe some of the big game was overhunted. And the deflector wall makes it so the drought doesn't get off the fire. Yeah.
What's the purpose of the wood coming out in the building? I see it.
Yeah, those are places where there's a floor, multi-story structures. Oh. So they're vigas where
Sort
that.
of structural then.
Yeah, and it's a floor. It's actual like, floor people would stand on. So it's part of the structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold up to.
Matanda, kaya, ikaw hindi kaya.
Wala mang exercise eh.
Hindi ka pwede sa barko ni Diyos pa. Yung kasanayan nun, di mo ba nagdanan na nakatarik nun?
Matarik to. Parang mas mahirap ata to.
Hindi mo na lang.
Tubig ko, eh. Ha? Hindi mo na lang tubig. Sobra kasi sa hindi kaya ni Tabato, hindi ko kasi sa butas si Tabato.
Ganyan na sa ano eh. Hindi ka kaya matarik. Si Father kaya to. Ganito din. Hindi kaya. Antayin na. Huwag kang upas dito.
Hanggang ka, pag nahulog yan, dadaganan tayo niyan pare-pareho. Kaya nga ayoko yung matabadong kanina eh. Tangin na, pag nabulaglag yun.
Yung mga malatanda na kaya eh. Sige. Kay Diyos pa, hindi ka pa pwede.
Parang barko ni Joko pa to.
Mas matindi yun. Bakal talaga yun.
Kala ko pa madali lang to. This is the easy, sabi nila. Diyos ko, hindi yung iba mas grabe. You made it. Di! Yung nga dito, puta.
Kita yung singit mo.
Dali, dito.
Huwag mo akong kausapin, gago.
Kita yung singit mo.
Dito. Tulungan pa ako.
Oh yes, I
yes,
saw
it is.
that. Whew.
GoPro.